guys, Bar from TST Industries here. Today in the shop we have a 2017 and up Yamaha YZF R6, and we will be presenting to you the installation procedure for the Womet-Tech Endurance Frame Sliders. These components are made of CNC machined aluminum and also nice durable impact resistant delrin, and in combination they add protection to your machine by distributing the stress of impact and abrasion in case you do go down. They fit right about here into the frame, into the engine, and like I said, they will take the impact in case your bike experiences a crash. Now the installation is a little involved, like with most frame sliders on most motorcycles, but we've made that procedure a little bit simpler by including in the kit our cutting templates that will enable you to pinpoint the hole center that will then let your frame slider protrude through the fairing. I can estimate that it will take about 25 minutes to install these. You guys follow along, hope you enjoy. We will begin the process by removing the black shroud from top of the fairings here. To do that, we will disengage the two push pin fasteners that fix it in place. Reset the center by pushing it down, and that frees it. It's one of these guys. In locked position, they look like this. Press them in, and they unlock. These are the locations of those push pins. Once you get them out, this comes out freely. And next, we'll move on to a component down here. There is a binding plate joining the left and the right fairings together. I will remove the two fasteners holding the outer fairing to that joining plate. I'm using a 4mm Allen to do that. And once those screws are out, we can pull this component back towards the header, and that disengages the sliding clips. And now we can pull that out. Now I'll just work my way through all the fasteners here, most of which are 4mm head, with the exception of the top one, which is 5. So when these fasteners come out, some of them have washers. I tried to retain the washers with the screws so that I can easily replace them. All right, at this point, we have a couple push pin type fasteners from the inside of this assembly. There is one joining a black shroud right behind here to the headlight clip. I will push it in and remove it. Now this piece is free from there. And there is also a quarter turn fastener holding a tab on the radiator to this fairing right about here. So you need to use a Phillips screwdriver to give it a quarter turn counterclockwise. I like to use a screwdriver bit in tight spaces. That makes the job a little bit easier. You can actually fit a full-on screwdriver in there. Shouldn't be a big issue. All right, and now there are also a couple other push fasteners that we need to remove. Once I remove this fairing, I'll show you guys which ones need to come out. All right, now this entire assembly is loose down here. There's one more fastener up top right here on this axis, and it's a 4mm head. That will also need to come out. We could pull this fairing out. It's got a number of engagement clips, and then slide it forward. That should disengage all of the locking geometry. and enable you to take the fairing off. Now on the inside here, I removed these push pins here from these locations. I left one here. It really doesn't matter if we leave it in. If we take it off, this part comes off and just makes it more cumbersome in reassembly. This is the screw in this location I took out from here. It's the one black one. Remember that that one goes on the inside. So our frame slider will fit right into here. Before we install any of that, we need to make sure that we get a proper cut on this area here on the fairing. So let's go on over to our table. I'll show you guys how to do that. Now I've placed a blanket on my work surface here so that I protect the outer surface of my fairing. And now we'll begin the process of splitting these two fairings from each other. We'll go through the succession of screw removals here. They're all 4mm head. And there's one hidden behind here. These two come apart pretty easily. I'll just put this one to the side as we work on the main work in focus. So now we will choose the left template, since this is the left side of the bike, and cut it out. What I've done here is I actually cut it out already. I'll show you guys where this goes. So the series of notches in the paper after you cut it out will fit into the screw boss, and the rest of this will line up with the fairing, and then you'll have to bend over this tab and then tape it down. What I like to do is bend it first and make sure that I get the bend exactly on that line. It's very important to be very precise on the cuts and this bend, otherwise your hole will be slightly off, and that can produce less than professional results in the installation. So once again, let me get this template in place. Get that fold over the fairing edge and grab some painter's tape. Scotch tape can work as well. I just like painter's tape because it removes really easily. I'm just going to make sure that this line is perfectly at the top of the ridge of the fairing here, and start my tape job. If you've done things correctly, your tape job should look something like this. And now you have crosshairs here that will indicate where the center of the hole is. So now I will grab a drill. I've pre-installed a 1/8 inch drill bit in this drill. Also have to grab some eye protection. All right, and now I will just go into the center of that crosshairs, get a couple bites in, and begin drilling. And now I have a nice pilot hole that will serve as the center for my hole saw. For these sliders, I like to use a 2/8 inch diameter hole saw. That produces really nice effects. So you can notice I'm taking small bites at the plastic and going really slowly. You don't want to melt the plastic. It'll ball up around the edge and it'll be a pain to clean up. So now we're through with the hull, but on the back side, we have some of this foam still in place. So what I'm going to do here is take a utility knife, carve away at it to make clearance for our frame slider. All right, now we can peel back this tape. And now I'm going to use a file to just bevel that edge a little bit. You could also run a utility knife edge along the edge of your cut. Now scrape off little curlies that we formed during drilling. And I think this is pretty good to go. Now we can reinstall the part that we removed from this fairing in the reverse order of disassembly. Now with these screws going back in, I never use a mechanized tool. For this purpose, I always have a hand tool. So I'm going to follow up and tighten down with a 4mm hand Allen. And now at this point, we can go over to the bike and perform the installation of the actual frame slider hardware, and then we will get this fairing back on the bike and we'll move on to the other side. So now it will be necessary to remove this bolt that holds the frame to the motor. This is done using a 12mm socket. Now, it is very important not to loosen both sides before you complete one side, so don't jump the gun. Do only one side at a time. All right, so from our kit, we will select the longer aluminum spacer as well as the longer bolt. Put it through and we'll insert it into the frame just in case you guys drop this on the floor or something like that and the internal spacer comes out. I just want to go over how all this fits together. There's a shoulder spacer and the shoulder faces out on the puck, and there's an insert piece for the center here that takes the load of the screw. So we'll fit that in, and we will grab an 18mm socket and try to engage the threads. Once you have thread engagement, you can go ahead and bottom that out. Get that screw bottomed out. You need to switch over to a torque wrench set at 30 foot-pounds. And once you achieve the specified torque, the side's ready to go. We can remount the fairing and move over to the other side. All right, so let's put our fairing back on and see how everything came out. I'm going to start in the front here. We have this shroud that needs to get around our rectifier, and we need to engage a couple tabs here. All right, so once you align the front clips, you can press them in, and now the fairing will be self-supporting. We just align all the other clips up top so they engage. And then up here, there's a screw boss that you will need to center in the screw hole. And now we can grab that one 5mm head Allen short with the washer that we took out during disassembly and get it back in there. The long screw with the 4mm head and a black washer goes in this place. And we have the large diameter 4mm head, this length, that goes here. Now before I move forward, I have to make sure that everything's engaging and aligning here. And it looks like the rest of the screws will. Everything's looking good. We have the black screw that we pulled out from this location here. It's a 4mm. Get that back in place. And the rest of these are all the same. These bottom ones do have shoulders on them. You can see here, the shoulder is meant to center in this slot. So before you start cranking down on it, you have to make sure that it's actually centered in there, otherwise you'll squash the plastic of your fairing. The last one here, I'm gonna hold off on putting it back in because that fixes this component in place, and we still need it to be out for the purpose of doing the other side. So for now, I'll just replace this top shroud here. I'll line up all of the locking features. There's a friction fastener here. It's basically a peg that fits into a rubber grommet that needs to be pressed in, and then everything else slides forward because it has ramping locks that look like this that engage into slots. And now we can replace these push pins here. There were two up top. Get them placed after resetting them to this position. Insert them in the hole and then press it to lock. Now I'm going to grab the other ones that I've taken out from the inner shroud and get that shroud fixed in place. And there's that one that was quarter turn. It goes from the backside through a radiator tab into this fairing here. And there you have it. That's pretty much done. I want to mention that these kits come with center caps for a nice cosmetic effect. They come with black by default, but we do have several different colors available for this particular bike. I like silver. We've done a couple other silver things, so I'm going to keep with the theme and press that in. Make sure that it's level. All right, that's pretty much good to go. I'm gonna hop on over to the other side and repeat this procedure. So on the right-hand side fairing, once again, we are going to remove the top portion to gain access to this area here, the screw boss, that will enable us to align our right fairing template. Once again, 4mm Allen, 4 fasteners, Place this temporarily on the side and proceed to work on finding the hole center. Now I've peeled back some of this foam. It'll be necessary to have enough room to place down our template here. I've already pre-bent the tab along the bend line, so that will go over the fairing edge, and just have to make sure that I have my tab here in far enough. Once you get it located, it should look something like this. You have the tab inside and the edges aligned with the gussets here. I'm going to proceed to tape it down. And at this point, this is what my tape job looks like. I have my crosshairs here. I'm going to use an 1/8 inch bit. Eye protection. I like to get a couple bites in before I proceed to power drilling, and then slowly drill. All right, and now we have our pilot hole. We could peel off our template. Flip this guy around. Replace our drill bit with our hole saw. Grab the wider tape, protect the area. All right. So now on the other side, I'll grab my knife and cut away on the foam where it overlaps my hole. And now it won't be in the way. You could peel back on the blue tape. So now we can grab a file and bevel that edge. This really works best with a curved top file. If you have access to one of those, I suggest using that. Like I mentioned before, you can also scrape the edge on a 45-degree angle, and it will give nice results. Just don't press too much. You can also get rid of the plastic left behind on the back of this fairing with the utility knife. It'll make for a nicer edge. Not that you can really see it inside, but if you want to be precise, that's a step I recommend doing. And now we have a nice edge. Here you can see some scratches on this fairing. This particular bike has already met the pavement. It only tipped over, but if the bike had the frame sliders already installed, this would have been prevented. Anyway, now we're ready to go back on the bike and perform the installation of the actual frame slider hardware. All right, back on the bike now, using a 12mm socket. We'll remove the frame to motor connection. once this comes out, you have a number of spacers in here, configured like this. 2 conical spacers going into a split spacer, and that needs to go back in there in that same configuration. I typically just leave it in place. There's really no need to remove it, but I'm showing you guys just in case they get dislodged on you, so you know how to get them back in there. All right, so from our kit, we will select the shorter screw, the shorter spacer, and the other puck. Like I showed you before, this puck has a shoulder spacer in there with the shoulder part facing out. Using an 18mm socket, I'm going to engage the threads by hand. I'm going to work it in until it bottoms out. And switch over to my torque wrench set at 30 foot-pounds. And there it is. That's done. We can now replace the fairing, and then we'll be done. Before the fairing can go back on the bike, we need to reassemble its 2 portions together. So I'm going to turn those 4mm head screws back into position after aligning the upper portion with the mounts on the lower. Now at this point you have a little bit of adjustability here. These are slotted, so if something doesn't align on your bike after you superimpose the fairing onto the bike itself, you can take the fairing off and reposition this and fine-tune that fitment. So for us, I think we'll just go try it out and see how it fits. Just like on the right side, I'm going to get this shroud to fit over this area first. And I will engage the front clips here, and then the top, and then we'll have it self-supporting. So this is vastly easier if you keep it loose and then get the back portion on first. There's a little slide lock that needs to slide together, and then all of these components go together much easier. All right, now we can get the top shroud in. And now come to the final part here. We'll engage the sliding features with the locks on the inside of this panel. So you have to carefully mate these sliding locks together before you push forward, otherwise you won't get proper engagement. I've done that now. I'm going to turn in the final 2 screws. And now we're almost done. Our last remaining step is to press in our center cap. Sometimes these caps present a little bit of a challenge while pressing in, and they pressurize inside and they push out. If you're experiencing that, you can use a rubber mallet and that'll help you and make this vastly easier. Now, I'm pretty much done. Actually, I am done. Took a couple minutes, but it produces really nice results. And with the center caps, we have nice matching silver themes going on. Bike is really pretty and well protected. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that subscribe button, and other than that, I hope to see you at tstindustries.com.